Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my 2020-2021 NFL Wildcard Weekend predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this past week, it was a up and down week for my against the spread and straight up picks. I went 4-11-1 against the spread, and straight up I went 13-3. So that equals 28.1% against the spread, and straight up 81.3%. So overall for the year against the spread, I am 126, 123, and 7 against the spread to finish the year. And I can't believe the 256 games are done, and I'm going to be able to say that the season's done, which equals 50.6%. And straight up for the year, I went 171, 84, and 1, which equals 67% straight up. So definitely my against the spread record was right around where I usually am at for the last few years. I think a little bit down this year, but still above 500, so I will take that as a win. And straight up, I was a little bit above average for my straight up picks. Usually I'm at 65, 66%. I was about 1% higher this year at 67, or technically, after I did the math, 66.99, but I rounded up. So I got to that one extra percentage point. What a crazy week in the NFL, as they all usually are. But what a wild one this one was to end the weekend. I want to congratulate all the teams that made the playoffs, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Steelers, the Titans, the Ravens, the Browns for the first time in 18 years. Kudos for making the playoffs after beating the backups of the Steelers by 2 points. Again, kudos to them. And the Indianapolis Colts, who beat the Jaguars by 14 points to clinch the 7th seed, where the Dolphins just folded under the pressure of the Bills, and that was even with the Bills' backups. That was probably the worst loss Miami's had in a very long time, and it felt very reminiscent of the 2015 season, to where the Bills at home in a Week 17 game where the other team had a chance to win. Basically the same thing to the Jets. This time it was the Dolphins, who were a much better team, were a more structured team. But at least the one advantage for the Dolphins they had this year is the fact that, like the Orlando Magic back in the mid-90s after they drafted Shaq, I got the one lottery ball to get the number 1 pick once again. They do have the number 3 overall pick due to the Houston Texans trade. So I thought that was nuts. And then in the NFC side, I congratulate the Green Bay Packers, the New Orleans Saints, the Seahawks, the Washington Football Team, the Bucks, the Rams, and the Bears, who backed their way into the Rams beating the Cardinals 18-7 in the last game of the year, which knocks Kingsbury and the Cardinals out of the playoffs. And that very well likely might be Larry Fitzgerald's final game, which he was not able to play in, which was sad. And if it is the end for Larry, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best players, one of the best wide receivers in my generation, one of the best, I think, in just league history. What a career. Get your flowers, round of applause, whatever. Best of luck to Fitzgerald, whatever endeavor he decides to go with next. And then you had, the Washington Football Team beating the Eagles, and the big story there was Doug Peterson pulling Jalen Hurts out early in the fourth quarter to bring in Nate Sudfeld, the former 6th-round pick drafted by the Washington Football Team in 2010. He did not do anything well. He did not play well. He played like garbage. And it really was disappointing because I think for a lot of people, the Eagles, essentially, to use a idea from a team in the same city, they processed their way into going from the 9th pick into the 6th pick. And I understand that a lot of people were upset. If anybody wants my 2 cents on it, I didn't like the move personally because I thought that the Eagles, it wasn't like the Bucks-Lions game back in Week 16, not this past Saturday, but 2 Saturdays ago, when they were down 34-0, and the Bucks had decided to rest, and you decided to put Nate Sudfeld in at that moment. If that was the last game of the year, I'm like, okay, fine. If the Washington Football Team had blown out the Eagles, they were down by 28-plus points, there would be no point in putting Hurts back in there, just for his own sake, because Carson was an act. But this was a game that was incredibly close. Alex Smith threw 2 horrible interceptions, though they were not all his fault because both receivers, or both the running back and the receiver both times, Thomas and McKissick respectively, both fell down. But this game was in reach, and honestly, I would have taken the field goal with about 11 minutes to go. I didn't understand. Doug Peterson was the coach that went for it the most on 4th down this year, which I didn't quite understand. But he obviously believed in it. I didn't, and it cost him the game. And I just think it's maybe not so much for the Giants, Because the Giants, at the end of the day, look, you were in the lead in the division. You had a month of football where you basically had to win one game out of 3 to win the entire division in the grand scheme of things. And you couldn't do it. And the Eagles said, we don't really owe anything to you. And we gave Washington the division on a silver platter. So, do I have sympathy for the Giants Warriors? Sure, a little bit. Do I have a little bit of sympathy for the Giants fans? In a way, but at the end of the day, we're still a 6-win team. So, to brag about winning the division, I know I would say the same thing. Sure, but thankfully the Ravens were 11-5 and didn't win our division at all. So I don't have to worry about being mediocre and winning a division badly. Or winning a bad division. So, there was that. And then the Bucks, Tom Brady was 40 TDs. Job well done. Fantastic year. Mike Evans, first receiver in NFL history to start his career with 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons. Antonio Brown got 11 receptions, so he has over 60 for the year. So he gets a nice bonus. Chris Godwin and a nice 1-yard or another nice touchdown pass. And the Bucks were rolling, 47 points. And I do think the Bucks, they're going to be a much better team and a more consistent team than any of the top seeds, Green Bay, or maybe Green Bay, Seattle. If they have to play one of them, they should look out because I do think the Bucks can win those games. The only one I don't feel confident in is them going back into New Orleans for a third time in possibly the divisional round or the NFC Championship game. Or, I'm sorry. Yeah, so there was that. And, yeah, those are all my big moments. So congrats to all the playoff teams. Congrats to the Jags for getting the number 1 overall pick, losing 15 straight games after beating the Colts in week 1. So they're going to get Trevor Lawrence. And kudos to the Dolphins who get the 3rd overall pick due to the Laramie Tunsil trade. Due to the Laramie Tunsil trade a couple years ago. So, kudos to the Dolphins there. Alright, so time for my picks and thoughts on each game. So, on wildcard weekend, first time in NFL history with 6 wildcard games. On the first game on Saturday at 1:05, when the Indianapolis Colts go to the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 7-point favorites in this game. I like the Indianapolis Colts here +7, but give me the Buffalo Bills straight up. Then the next game, when the Los Angeles Rams go to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 4.5-point favorites in this game. I like the Seattle Seahawks here to win straight up. Give me the Los Angeles Rams +4.5. Then the next game, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the Washington Football Team. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 8-point favorites in this game. I like Tampa Bay here -8 and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the Baltimore Ravens go to the Tennessee Titans. In my upset of the week, the Baltimore Ravens are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like the upset here, so give me the Tennessee Titans here +3.5 and the Tennessee Titans straight up. Then the next game, when the Chicago Bears go to the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I like the New Orleans Saints here -9.5 and New Orleans Saints straight up. Then the next game, when the in the final game, when the Cleveland Browns go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here -4 and Pittsburgh straight up. Alright, so time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Buffalo Bills over the Indianapolis Colts. This is one to where I think the Bills win this game based off of Josh Allen's dynamic ability versus Rivers' lack of dynamics. The Colts can win this game, and I think 7 points is way too many, especially with this Colts team that has a very good offensive line, even though they don't have Anthony Costanzo. They have a good defense with guys like Malik Hooker, Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard. I'm trying to think of some of the other assets the Colts have, but it's a really good Colts defense led by Matt Eberflus, who could be getting a head coaching job, or at least he's getting head coaching interviews, how good he's been doing. And I like what the Colts have offensively. You have Jonathan Taylor, who's been a sensational running back, arguably the best rookie running back in the whole league. You have T.Y. Hilton, you have Zach Pascal, you have Pittman, you have Doyle, you have just a fundamental and consistent Colts offense led by Frank Reich that he knows how to use Rivers in the best ways possible. And Phillip Rivers has had a very good year. But he hasn't had the year that Josh Allen's had. Josh Allen, through the first 2 halves of the year, threw for 2,000 yards respectively. He threw for another 3 touchdowns against the Dolphins in a rout 56-26. And I was just really impressed with how the Bills, all the way around, played a clean and crisp football game. Even with Matt Barkley going in as the backup, I thought that was very nicely done to see Barkley being able to move the offense with Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, and a lot of other assets for the Buffalo Bills. And like I said, I'll go back. I think the Buffalo Bills win this football game off the dynamics of Josh Allen compared to the staleness or the lack of dynamics of Phillip Rivers and the Colts offense. Josh Allen has shown you that throughout the year, he can, make a lot of great plays, but also make some boneheaded plays. So I think if the Colts can capitalize on some bad Josh Allen plays this game, the Colts could win. Because I trust their kicker to an extent. Blankenship's not bad, though he did miss a 49-yard field goal, which is a little disappointing. And I think the Colts, they've been here before. Rivers has been here before with Reich, and he knows exactly these kind of moments where Josh Allen and the Bills, this is their chance to redeem themselves after what happened the last year in the collapse against the Texans. And I think that they will have learned from that game, but we will see. But I do think there's a lot of pressure on the line for Josh Allen in this regard and the Bills. If they lose this game, this will be the back-to-back playoff appearance for Sean McDermott, the third time in 4 years making the playoffs. If he can't win one of these games, you have a problem in the fact that the Bills are going to become like the Bengals from 2011 to 2015. Next year, the Bills can win a bunch of football games. Nobody's going to care about them until they win a postseason game. And that's what's at stake for the Bills. The Colts are in a great position. Frank Reich's under no pressure. He can get Phillip Rivers back, but he may retire. And he'll be in the Carson Wentz sweepstakes or in the Carson Wentz market if or when the Philadelphia Eagles decide to trade or cut Carson Wentz. So he's in a great spot moving forward. The Bills, they're in a good spot too, but it's just a point about will you care about the Bills moving forward? Can the Bills put in a playoff victory that doesn't put McDermott and Allen in that Bengals class? And I think they will, just because, again, I'll go back to Josh Allen's going to have more dynamic plays and more consistency than the Indianapolis Colts will. Sounds like the Buffalo Bills here to win straight up at Indianapolis Colts +7. The next game, the Seattle Seahawks over the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks here based on the fact of where I like what the Seahawks defense has been able to do the last few weeks. Or last several weeks, they've been able to clamp down defensively. They lead the league in sacks over the last 5 or 6 weeks. I think that their defense has been coming pretty consistently. The offense, I'm kind of concerned about. They were down. They only scored 6 points through 4 quarters against the Niners. And it took basically a 20-point burst from Russell Wilson in an offense for Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. By the way, congrats for DK. He breaks the Seahawks all-time single season receiving yard record. Tyler Lockett breaks out the single season reception record. And Tyler Lockett caught his 100 touchdown pass against the Niners, or his 99th and his 100 touchdown pass against the Niners yesterday. And I just think, I think the Seahawks offense, their running backs, Chris Carson got banged up. Rashad Penny got banged up, but what's new, he's always just been hurt predominantly. But I look at the Seattle Seahawks, and I don't feel as confident as I did in the beginning of the year when they were just rolling through offensively. And you could argue, it's kind of a weird opposite to where if you can take the Seahawks offense from weeks 1 to 6 and take the Seahawks defense from weeks 11 to now and combine those two, that's the best team in football. But I don't see it happening. I see the defense being able to play a bit more consistently, just because that's what I've started to notice. But I feel like with the Rams, it's going to be a hard out there again. Because again, remember, it came down to a goal line stand just 2 weeks ago. If Darrell Henderson gets in the end zone and Jamal Adams doesn't make that stop, I think the Rams win that football game. And I could definitely see the Rams going in there, even with John Wolford. I think that's also the reason why I'm going with the Seahawks. Jared Goff, he started throwing yesterday. They think he could be available Saturday, but they think it's a long shot to have him throw after 12 days from a thumb surgery. So I think if it's John Wolford, I think the Seahawks defense can handle its job, and Russell Wilson is not Kyler Murray. Because that was the difference in the Cardinals game. I really feel like if Kyler was in that whole game, I think the Cardinals will win that game easily. He left after a lower leg injury, though I think the same leg that bothered him last week. He was out for about 50 to 65%, or maybe not even 50 to 75% of the game. He came back late third, early fourth quarter, really couldn't get anything going against the Rams defense, and that was the difference in the game. Do I think the Rams have a shot here? Yes, because I feel like John Wolford, the one thing he showed me was he definitely can run, which was really nice. And I think that if you look at it that way, I think that it will be interesting to see what happens with him running and see if he can make that some of those dynamic plays with his feet against Seahawks defense, which has shown throughout the year that they can give up long runs, or they can give up busted plays. But at the end of the day, this is the Seahawks at home. The last time I think Russ has been in this position was, he was a wild card team in 2019. He was a wild card team in 2018. 2016, I don't think Russ has lost a home playoff game in his career. No, I don't think. Yeah, Russell Wilson has never lost a home playoff game in his career. And I think against this Rams team, with John Wolford or not, I think that streak will continue. It'll be close. I do think the Rams defense can give the Seahawks a lot of trouble, but if you're going to tell me it's Russ or Jared Goff or Wolford with a broken thumb or John Wolford in his second career start, I'll take the Seahawks in this one, just like what happened with the Niners. And I feel like with Darrell Henderson's injury and Cam Akers being banged up, even though he played pretty well yesterday, I think they're not going to be able to run the ball as effectively, and I think that's going to be huge for the Seahawks to get this one. I'm going to take the Rams plus 4.5 because that defense and what I saw out of Seattle was not very good yesterday, even though they won by 3. So that's like the Seattle Seahawks here to win straight up to the Los Angeles Rams plus 4.5. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the Washington football team. I'm taking Tampa Bay here based on the fact of that I think Tampa's offense is going to be a little too dominant for Washington's defense. And what I've seen out of Washington's offense, it's not very good. Alex Smith, I do want to congratulate him. He is 11-5 as the starter through 16 career starts with the Washington football team over the last 3 years. And amazingly, he's the only winning quarterback the Washington football team has had since Jason Campbell back in 05 to 07. Which is amazing to believe because you have RG3, Rex Grossman, Colt McCoy, all those other quarterbacks that Washington played for, and none of them had a winning record. Alex Smith does. Kirk Cousins didn't have a winning record with Washington. And I think that, look, when you look at Tampa and Washington, this is one where I think the Bucs defense can shut down the running game of the Washington football team, which really will help them because Alex Smith, as good as, a great story is, he's the comeback player of the year. And it's a great emotional thing, and it's a great story, and it's a great team to get behind because of Ron and Alex's stories and how much they've had to go through. And it's a bad division team, so everybody would just want to laugh at the Bucs saying, "Haha, you lost to the team with no name that won a division, but that nobody deserved to win." I don't think that's going to happen though. I just think the Bucs, they're playing way too hot. Tom Brady, a 40 touchdown season he threw the 6th most picks in the league. I think it was like 12 or 13. So he had a very good year, probably a better year than a lot of people expected. But I just, again, like when you're in this game, the Bucs are against a very good Washington front. Use Tom Brady's advantage of quick throws, screens, short runs, dump offs, and make the blitz not get to you. Or if you can hold up enough, use the deep ball with guys like Evans, Godwin, Gronk, and all those guys to win this game. It should be a lopsided game because I feel like Tampa's defense will do a good job against the lack of Washington offensive weapons. But if Washington gets some turnovers, they definitely can get short fields. This game will be a lot closer because Tom Brady will be under duress, I believe, for majority of the game. Could Washington win? Maybe with a couple turnovers. So I think that, Washington, will play better than people expect. But I think at the end of the day, Tampa, with their experience, with Tom Brady playing as well as he has been, with the fact that Washington over the last few weeks against Teddy Bridgewater and the Panthers offense, against Wilson and the Seahawks offense, even though they were able to lower points, they were still able to get some big plays that guided them to victories in those respective games. And I could definitely see the same thing with the Bucs happening with Mike Evans or without him. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here, -8, and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Tennessee Titans over the Baltimore Ravens. This is a game to where I'm taking the Tennessee Titans in an upset based on the fact of Tennessee having Baltimore's number. Look, and a lot of people are going to say in this game, oh, wow, why are you going with the Ravens? They're the hottest team in the league. They won 5 straight games. They ran for 400 yards against the Bengals. They've, rediscovered themselves. I get all that. And the Titans are horrible. Their defense just gave up 38 points to Deshaun Watson and David Johnson and Brandon Cooks and nobody else. They had a 14-point lead and choked it. They have no pass rush. Derrick Henry's a monster, but, he's only Derrick Henry. And by the way, kudos to Derrick Henry for joining the 2,000-yard club. I get all that. But I'm taking the Titans here in this game just because it's just the momentum of the game. Can the Ravens win this game? Absolutely. And they're the favorite. Everybody finally thinks that, honestly, we are the Titans of last year entering this game against the Titans, who are essentially the same. And it's like, we have the momentum, and we should be able to knock over the Ravens. Or knock over the Titans. I want to believe that, but I just feel like with the Titans, they're hearing it once again. It's kind of like the same thing. It's a little different perspective. But they're going to go into it saying, oh, the Ravens are going back into town, and nobody's going to believe in us, and, they're going to run through our throats, and Lamar's finally going to win. And maybe that happens. I just don't think with the Ravens, with that lack of defensive issues against some of the better teams, the Browns gave us a run. I think the Titans with Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry just running the football. Last year in the postseason, he was absolutely dominant, and I could just see him doing the same thing once again. I know we got Calais Campbell and Derek Wolfe. Those are the reasons why we got those two for this game. I think it'll work somewhat, but at the end of the day, I feel like with the Titans, I feel like that they will just run a little bit better. And just like the last 2 times, until something different happens, Derrick Henry will run in, to the end zone on a back-breaking run after a close competitive game that sets up the Titans to get the win. And last time we had a 10-point-plus point lead on the Titans, and they came back on us. And that secondary isn't nearly as good as it was before, so we'll see what happens. But I'm going to take the Titans here in an upset based on the fact of just the history of the last couple games, the momentum the Titans have, and the pressure, the pressure the Ravens have because of, going into Nashville. The last time we won the playoff game, we won there in 2008 when we beat Kerry Collins and the 1-seeded Tennessee Titans. So maybe we could do that again against this Titan team. Not nearly as good, but it's kind of that same vibe. It's something where Derrick Henry, I believe, will be the difference once again. And I think Tannehill will outplay Lamar in this game with the weapons he has, just with the play action, and Tannehill wins. The Titans will win based off a long Derrick Henry run, like the last 2 times. And it'll be the 3rd strike year out for Lamar and the Ravens, and we are just going to be stuck in this playoff purgatory until Lamar finally gets a playoff win, which at that point, if he loses to the Titans again, who knows when he'll get it. Sounds like the Tennessee Titans here, plus 3.5. The Tennessee Titans straight up. The next game, the New Orleans Saints over the Chicago Bears. I'm taking the New Orleans Saints here based on the fact that the Chicago Bears backed themselves in. The Saints were dominant. They had 5 turnovers on the Carolina Panthers. Ty Montgomery had over 100 yards, and that was about Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray, Michael Burton, and most of their starting running backs. They had one other practice squad running back coming up. Emmanuel Sanders had a nice game. He caught his incentive for over $580,000 for a catch incentive. And when I just look at the Bears, I just think that, look, I remember back in week 6 when Foles played them, I took the Bears to win. I was the Saints were struggling, and I thought the Bears were on a little bit of a roll. This time around, the season's kind of completely gone up and down. The Saints have been pretty much consistent all year, where the Bears have had huge dips and valleys moving forward to where they've won 4 of their last 5. And they looked okay against the Packers to an extent for at least the first half, or if not the first 65% of the game. But at the end of the day, this is Bears Saints. There's some redemption here, I think, for Breeze. I remember Breeze played the Saints in the NFC Championship game back all the way in 2006. The Bears defense ended up shutting them down. I don't think it's going to happen this time. Breeze is, older, wiser, has more talent around him than the Bears. And also, I think the Saints know this is probably Drew Brees' last shot. And I think that motivation should carry them into at least the conference title game where everything's shaping up. And I just think 9.5 points should be easy. If Rodgers and them could do that, I think the Saints could do that as well, especially getting Michael Thomas back and probably Alvin Kamara back. That offense will be completely well-rounded, back into form, and I think the Saints just roll over the Bears in a pretty decisive game for the Saints to at least move them into the divisional round and stop their heartache of the last 3 postseasons where they've lost in the final play each of the last 3 postseasons. Very tough. Sounds like the New Orleans Saints here, minus 9.5, and New Orleans Saints straight up. And finally, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Cleveland Browns. The Pittsburgh Steelers are just the better football team in this regard, and I feel like the history of the Steelers and Browns is too glaring and too noticeable for me to know that Ben really hasn't lost that often to the Browns. I think he's only lost twice in his career. They didn't have their starting defensive lineman, Hayward, Watt. Joe Hayden could come back off the COVID list. They're going to have Claypool. They're going to have Juju. They have some confidence in what they did with Rudolph's performance. I don't think Ben's going to make the turnover that Rudolph did at the end of the game, and they're not going to let Nick Chubb run for 100 yards with all their defensive starters back. Do the Browns have a shot to win? Absolutely. I think the Browns, they have no pressure on them. This is a fun game to be in. They're just happy to be here. I know the Browns are going to be motivated to win, and they just played this team within the last 6 days. So it's not like you're going to see any new faces or any new wrinkles. You're going to see more talent come in, and I think that's going to be the difference in the game. And I think the Browns, they know exactly who they are, exactly what they are, and playing with that lack of pressure might be a good thing because the Steelers, as great as they were, and I know Tomlin's not playing under any pressure either, but the Steelers had a much higher expectation after going from 11-0 to a 2-3 ending to go 13-3. I think there's going to be pressure on the Steelers to say, don't you lose to the Browns, and don't let the streak end, and don't let Mike Tomlin's season, as good as it was, be a one and done and cause some issues. And at the end of the day, also, I just think with the Cleveland Browns, I just learned that Olivier Vernon tore his Achilles, so that's massive. So essentially, they could double team Myles Garrett. And whereas the pass rush for the Browns going to be, I don't know. And I think that Browns secondary with Denzel Ward being on the COVID list, he likely will be out for next Saturday or next Sunday. I just think it's going to be a tough game for the Browns to win, just due to the fact of the history of the Steelers and Browns. The Steelers are getting all their talent back and having really one legitimate pass rusher. I think is going to be too much for the Steelers or for the Browns to handle, and I think the Steelers win the game to get to the divisional round for the first time since 2017. All right, so that's why I like the Pittsburgh Steelers here -4 and Pittsburgh Steelers straight up. And so those are my picks and thoughts for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to view other wild card predictions for this week. And until next week for my divisional round picks, good luck to all players, teams, playoff fantasy owners, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matt the NFL Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.